Welcome to this webinar on the modeling of viral lipids pharmacokinetics. My name is Geraldine Herard. I'm the VP Application at Richter. It is my pleasure to introduce Pauline Traynard, our Applications Manager. Pauline will give a 45-minute step-by-step demonstration, and this will be followed by a Q&A session. During or after the demonstration, you can type your questions in the Q&A box of the WebEx interface, and we will answer them at the end. And now hand over to Pauline.
Thank you, Geraldine. So I will present now a modeling case study based on the PK dataset of Veraliprid. Veraliprid is a benzamine neuroleptic medicine indicated in the treatment of vasomotor symptoms associated with the menopause. This published PK dataset has been measured on only 12 individuals who received the same single dose. And as we will see, a double peak in plasma concentrations was observed for most individuals after oral administration. Multiple peaks in plasma concentration time curves is not uncommon, but it can create difficulties in the determination of PK parameters. This phenomenon can be explained with different physiological processes, and here are some examples. So solubility-limited absorption can be due, for example, to pH-specific differences in the gastrointestinal tract. Complexation with poor absorption in the proximal part of the small intestine. Sustained release formulation designed to have both a fast and a slow release component. Enterohepatic recycling, delayed gastric emptying, viability of absorption through the gastrointestinal membrane, or also effects of surgery and anesthesia. And in the case of Veraliprid, site-specific absorption has been suggested to be the major mechanism responsible for the multiple peaking phenomenon, with rapid absorption occurring first in the proximal part of the gastrointestinal tract, followed by a second phase in more distal regions. Different modeling attempts for Veraliprid have been published, and they follow two main modeling approaches. The first approach uses double absorption models. So such models assume simultaneous inputs via two parallel pathways, and we will see that it is really easy to implement such a model for monolix by adapting a single absorption model available in the PK library, and I will show then a full modeling workflow with this model. However, it lacks a biological justification linked to physiology. So the second approach tries to ensure a clear physiological interpretation by modeling two successive absorption windows. I will also explore a basic model that follows this approach and that has only one more parameter than the first model. And we will see how MLExplore can be useful to check and understand the behavior of the model, and I will show briefly what is the result when this model is estimated in monolix. So I will now set up a modeling workflow with a double absorption model in monolix. So I first start by creating a new project in monolix, and I load the dataset with the default column types, ID, time, amount, and observation. Then when I click on Accept, I click on Data Viewer to explore the dataset. So the plot of observations versus time is then generated, and I can highlight individual curves to see more easily the double peak in plasma concentration for some individuals, for example, individual 12. And I can also see already that the double peak phenomenon is not systematically noticeable, for example, here for ID10. To see in more detail, I can also focus on each individual in the Stratify panel with the individual selection. And this allows me to browse through the individuals, and I can see that the second peak is often noticeable in actually 9 individuals out of 12. And the second peak is often smaller than the first, but not always. Now to check the elimination for each individual, I choose a log scale on the y-axis. And again, I can see that some individual curves seem to display an elimination phase with two slopes, characteristics of two compartment models, for example, here for individual 8, but this is not always the case. So for example, for individual 1, it seems closer to a linear elimination. To conclude the data exploration, I have identified several properties. 9 out of 12 individuals exhibit a clear double peak in plasma concentration, The second peak is often but not always smaller than the first, and some of the individual curves seem to display an emission phase with two slopes, characteristics of a two-compartment model. I can now close the data viewer and click on Next. Now I have to define a structural model. To help initializing the parameter estimate, I will first choose a model with one absorption from the PK library and estimate its parameters before adapting the model to add the second absorption. So in the PK library, I choose a model with an oral administration, no delay, a first order absorption, two compartments from what we have seen in the data exploration, and a linear elimination. Three models are available in the PK library for these choices with different parameterization, and I choose the model encoded with rate rather than clearance. So after choosing this model, the tab Initial Estimate allows me to choose initial values for the 5 population parameters, Ka, D, K, K12, and K21. Here I aim at having a rough match between the population prediction and the data for most individuals. So I start by decreasing VPOP to fit a bit the scale of the observations and also decreasing KPOP. I can select the log scale to check more easily the elimination, and I change K12 and K21 to display the two slopes of the elimination. And finally, I should also increase K8, for instance, to 5. So when I'm happy with the results, I can click on Set as Initial Values to validate these values. Then the tab Statistical Model on Task is displayed and can be used to adjust the statistical model and as well as running some tasks to evaluate the model. So in the first modeling phase, I aim at building in several steps the structural model. Therefore, I will first keep the default statistical model. It is composed of a combined one residual error model with an additive and a proportional term, log normal distribution for the 5 parameters Ka, D, K, K12, and K21, and random effects for all parameters and no correlation between the random effects. So once all the elements of the model have been specified, it is important that I save the project before running a task, so that the results of all the tasks run afterward will be saved in the folder next to the project file. So I save it, for instance, on my desktop as pk1.mlxrun. Then I can run the tasks that are selected by clicking on the green arrow here, Run Scenario. To evaluate quickly the model, I will keep the default selection so that population parameters and EDEs will estimate the population parameters and the individual parameters. The tab Conditional Distribution will sample several individual parameters from their conditional distributions to improve the performance of the diagnostic plot. And it is particularly useful when there are few individuals like here. And finally, of course, I need the task plot to diagnose the model. So I run this scenario, and the window monolith scenario allows you to check in real time the process of each task. And in particular, the graphical report of the SAM iterations is useful to check that the convergence seems good. Two new tabs now display the results of the task. The tab Results contains the estimated parameters as tables, for example, the population parameters here. So here I can notice, in particular, a high value for omega K12 and omega Ka, meaning a high inter-individual variability for these parameters, which is coherent with the variability in the shapes of absorption and elimination that we have seen in the data viewer. And I will see later how to check the uncertainty of the parameters and assess the relevance of inter-individual variabilities. Then the tab Plots contains the diagnostic plot, and on the individual fits here, I see that the individual fits, of course, do not capture double peaks, but fit properly the elimination. On the plot Observation versus Prediction, I choose a log-log scale, and I display the 90% prediction interval. And by the way, to keep this selection for the next run, I have to save my project again now. Here I notice several over-predicted outliers outside the interval here. that suggests a misspecification of the structural model. And when I hover on a dot, I can identify the corresponding ID and time. You can also notice that each time point here corresponds to several dots that appear with a larger size. So they correspond for each observation to different predictions based on different individual parameters drawn from the conditional distributions. This method circumvents the phenomenon of shrinkage in the diagnostic plots. So I noticed that for most outliers, they correspond to low times for ID7, ID8, ID12. So going back to the plot of the individual fits, I can use the linked zoom on the x-axis to focus on low times for all individuals, like this, for example. And here I see that the predicted absorption starts too early for ID7, individual 8, also 12, and this explains the overpredictions at low times. So this suggests to include a delay for the oral absorption in the structural model. So I'm going to modify the structural model. Before this, I can store the population estimate as new initial values for the next estimation in order to speed up the convergence, and I do this by clicking on Use Last Estimate in this tab. Then in the tab Structural Model, I choose a new structural model from the library with a delayed first-order oral absorption, with still two compartments and a linear elimination. So this model has one additional parameter, T-lag, compared to the previous one. In this tab here, I set a reasonable initial value for this parameter according to the delay that I have seen on the individual fit. So for example, 0.1 is a good initial value. And then the initial values for the 5 other parameters remain equal to the previous estimate. Then I save this modified project under a new name, so pk2.mlxtran. Then I can run the same scenario as before. So I notice that here, most of the fixed effects stay close to the previous solution, but T-lag pop is estimated as 0.13, close to my initial guess, and only Ka pop has been able to increase thanks to the delay to a bit more than 14. On the plot observations versus predictions, now there are much less outliers. So this single dot here stands out, but the other predictions for the same observation are in the prediction interval. And this one also stands out a bit. It is for ID4 at time 24, so I can have a look in the individual fit. It corresponds to this dot here. So it may not fit because of the lack of the second absorption peak for this individual. So it seems that I have a good initialization model with only one delayed absorption, and I can now include a second delayed first-order absorption in the structural model to capture the second peak. So as previously, I store the population estimate as new initial values by clicking on Use Last Estimate. Then I go to Structural Model to modify the structural model. First, let's just have a look at the model I want to implement. So this is a schematized representation of the current model from the library with a single delayed absorption and a peripheral compartment. And I want to implement two absorptions where the dose is split into two fractions that I can call F1 and 1 minus F1 for each absorption. However, there is no model in the PK library for this. Therefore, it is necessary to write the model ourselves. So to do this, it is convenient to use the dedicated editor of Monolix, which has specific syntax coloring for MLXtran, the modeling language of Monolix. And I could open the editor as a separate application, like this, and write the model from scratch. Or I can just modify the current model from the library by clicking on Open in Editor. Note that the syntax for each section of MLXtran, for example, longitudinal, equation, output, is documented online, along with a list of macros that allow to easily define elements of a PK model. And here, the current model from the library is written with the macro PK model that is used to define in one line standard PK models. But since the double absorption model that I want to write is non-standard, I will replace these single macros with a list of macros to define the different elements of my model. Again, each macro is documented online. So for example, this is the page for the absorption that can be used to define an oral absorption linked to some compartment. And it takes as argument ADM if there are several types of doses, but here this is not the case. T-lag for a delay, P for the proportion of the drug amount that is absorbed, compartment for the compartment, and then for a first order absorption, I need an argument Ka for the absorption rate, and then there are some other optional arguments to define transit compartments, but I will not use them now. So back to my model, I can replace the section equation by a section PK to define a list of PK macros. And I first characterize the central compartment with a macro compartment and the number 1. I give the parameter for the volume and a variable name for the concentration that I call CC, just like in the output. Then I define a first order absorption with the macro absorption that we had just seen that is linked to the first compartment. Then I define the parameter for the absorption rate. Note that the keyword recognized by the absorption macro is Ka, so if I want to use another parameter name, for instance Ka1, I can write it like this. Then in the same way, I define my delay parameter with T-lag1, and I define with P the proportion of the dose that is absorbed with these characteristics, and I call this fraction F1. Then I can duplicate this line, this absorption, to define a second absorption, and I can change the parameter name to Ka2 and T-lag2, and the proportion to 1 minus F1. So each dose is split into two fractions, F1 and 1 minus F1, which are absorbed with different absorption rates and different delays. Finally, I use the macro elimination linked to the first compartment to define the linear elimination with the rate K, and peripheral to define implicitly the peripheral compartment with the two transfer rates K12 and K21. I can now replace T-lag and Ka by the new parameters in the input list. So Ka1, Ka2, T-lag1, T-lag2, and F1. Then I remove the old description, which is optional, and I save this model as a new file. Finally, I can check with the button compile here that the model has no syntax error and is understood by Monolix. So in conclusion, I have defined easily my double absorption model with 5 PK macros. Note that this implementation also takes advantage of the analytical solution if it is available, which is the case here. So it runs faster than if the model would be written with an ODE system. Then I just have to load this new model with Bose. And I can choose initial values for the new parameters. So because I have chosen to change the names of Ka and T-lag into Ka1 and T-lag1, I need to enter new values as well, but I can choose values close to the ones estimated before. So for instance, 14 for Ka1 and 0.13 for T-lag1. Then it is important to choose initial values for the other parameters that show the two peaks of absorption to help the convergence. So I start with setting the proportion of the drug in the first absorption to 0.8, for instance, in order to see the second absorption. And then I can increase T-lag2 to 2. And here the double peaks are clearly visible. And the fits are reasonable, so I can now accept this value. Finally, I should also change the individual model for F1. because f1 is a fraction, so its value has to stay between 0 and 1. So to make sure of this, I choose a logit normal distribution before saving the modified project as PK3. Then I can run the same scenario as before. And here, the convergence plot should show that the values estimated with this model are quite different from the values estimated in the previous run. For instance, the volume decreases by half at least, and same for the other. And this is because I have changed my model quite a lot with the second absorption. Now, on the plot of the individual fits, I see that the double peaks are clearly properly captured for all individuals. And the fits are not perfect, but at least almost all individuals have their double peaks. And if I check the plot observation versus prediction, there is no, there's much less visible misspecification. There are not many outliers, so no visible misspecification of the structural model. So now I can assess the uncertainties of the population parameter estimate that are here by running the task standard errors. So I will select it, and for a fast assessment, I choose to select the use linearization method so that the task can quickly compute the standard errors for each estimate that are then displayed in the table of the population parameter estimates. And here, high relative standard errors are highlighted in orange or in red for K21 pop, omega K, and omega K12. And they correspond to parameters that are very uncertain. In particular, omega K is difficult to identify, apparently. And its small estimated value suggests to maybe remove the random effect on K, but it is not clear. So to confirm this hint, I'm going to estimate more precisely in the next run the omega parameter, so the standard deviations of the random effect. So first, I save the population estimate as new initial values with use last estimates. Then I am going to run the estimation of the population parameters with SAM without simulated annealing. What is simulated annealing? This is an option that I can disable in the settings of SAM here. So by default, SAM includes this method to constrain the variance of the random effect and the residual error parameters to decrease slowly. And here you can set the maximum decrease from one iteration to the next one, which is 5% by default. And for the first step of the modeling workflow, this option is actually very useful because the size of the parameter space explored by monoliths is related to the omega values. So keeping the omega values high at the beginning permits to keep a high size for the parameter space explored by SAM, and it allows to escape local minima and facilitate the convergence towards the global maximum. But once good initial values have been found and the risk of being trapped in a local maximum is negligible, then the simulated annealing option may keep the omega values artificially high, even after a large number of SAM iterations, and it may prevent the identification of parameters for which the variability is in fact 0. So at this point of the modeling workflow, it can be useful to disable the simulated annealing. This is what I do, and now I save this modified project as PK4 .mlxtran. And I run only SAM to estimate the population parameters. And here I can see that the estimate for omega K decreases to a very small value, as well as omega K12. And I can also check in the table in the result that these estimates are now very small. Note here that this message warns me that the exploratory phase has stopped at the maximum number of iterations, so that convergence may not have been reached. This is because omega K and omega K12 are still decreasing when the maximum number of iterations, which is 500 by default, is reached. But here this is not an issue in our case because the goal of this run is to identify parameters without variability. So after using the last estimate, I remove the random effect for K and K12 by unchecking the corresponding boxes here. Then I save this project as PK file. And I run again the scenario that contains the tasks also with the standard error to check against the uncertainty of the estimate. So I check that the remaining omega parameters do not decrease in spite of the disabling of the simulated annealing. So therefore, these omega parameters were not overestimated. And I check as well that all the population estimates show reasonable standard error. I also notice here that the uncertainty of the constant error, the constant residual error A, is still quite high, 75%. So this suggests to try to find a more adequate residual error model than the combined one model that has been selected by default. And to assess the consequences of changing the model, I will first compute the task log likelihood in order to be able to check how it is affected by the modification. So I can remember, for example, that the BIC is 1,875. So let's now have a closer look on at the error parameters, so here, to see what we can change. So the estimate of B is not really low, so we have no reason to drop the proportional term. And the estimate for A is not really low either compared to the smallest observation that I can see on the plot of the observed data. If I don't have it in mind, I can, for instance, choose to zoom on the y-axis on the smallest observation, and I can see that it is 1.3. So the constant term should not be dropped either. Therefore, what I will do after using the last estimate is to try a combined two error model, which also has the additive and proportional terms, but with a formula slightly different than combined one. And then I save the modified project as pk6.mlx1. And I run the full scenario with the task log likelihood to compare with the previous one. I check as usually that the estimates do not change much over the iterations of the estimation algorithm. And then I can check also that all the parameter uncertainties are now lower than 50%, let's say, and the information criteria also display a significant decrease, more than 7.4 BIC for the BIC. That shows that the combined two error model is more appropriate. So according to this result, this might be my final model. However, because I have only 12 individuals in my data set and the risk of overparameterization is a bit high, I should also evaluate the robustness of the convergence of the parameter estimation. And the convergence assessment tool is useful for this. So it allows to perform multiple runs of parameter estimation and compare the results. So here I could choose to estimate the parameters as well as the standard errors on the log likelihood 5 times with different seeds, and if I click here, also with different, also with different initial values randomly drawn around the estimate for each parameter. And to launch the assessment, I have to click here, and the 5 runs will be performed in a row. But this will take a few minutes, so instead of waiting for the results, let me show you on a slide the graphical report that I get. So the panel on the left allows to compare the convergence across the 5 runs, while the panel on the right compares the resulting estimates along with confidence intervals based on their standard errors. And for most parameters, the convergence is robust with close results between runs. However, the estimates of Ka pop and K12 pop and also D pop show significant variability. In particular, for K pop and K21 pop, there seem to be two possible sets of estimates found for each parameter. And this is characteristic of correlated population parameter estimates, and this can be confirmed by looking at the correlation matrix of the estimates in the result of the standard errors here. So here the correlation between D pop and K pop is quite high, as well as between D pop and K12 pop. This means, and these correlations are negative, this means that K and K12 have opposite effects to V on the prediction, and the data is not rich enough to be able to identify them uniquely. My model is a bit over-parameterized, which is not so surprising considering the number of individuals, and therefore it is necessary to fix one of these three parameters to get a robust convergence. And I will choose to fix K12 pop to keep the inter-individual variability on the elimination rate. So I use the last estimate, and then I fix K12 pop like this. So because it is fixed, it is now colored in orange. And here it is important to keep in mind that fixing the parameter value is a quite strong assumption. So if the model is used to draw conclusions from simulations, for instance, then the impact of this assumption should be checked. Then I set this project as TK7. And while I run the scenario for this project, let me show you the results obtained when performing again a convergence assessment with this new project with the parameter that is fixed. So these two reports now show a reasonably robust convergence for each estimate. So now I can consider this as the final model. I can check the statistical test in the result as well. If something appears in red, then it can point to a misspecification. But here there is no misspecification in the distribution of the random effect, including no really significant correlation and no issue in the distribution of the individual parameters. Now I can generate more diagnostic plots to evaluate further the goodness of fit and predictive power of this model. So in the list of plots here, I select the plot of the residuals and also the VPT. And I run the plots again. And on the plot of the residual, I can check that the dots seem to be spread quite symmetrically around the horizontal line. And on the VPT, let me add the legend. The empirical median and percentiles that are displayed as blue curves show good agreement with the predicted median and percentiles displayed as pink and blue areas. So simulations of the model are able to predict both the central trend that exhibits a double peak here and variability of the data set. So in conclusion, in about half an hour, I have been able to build a model step-by-step in Monolix that captures well the double peaks in the PK of VeraLiprid. Now I will apply and evaluate a second model. This model has been published in this paper where it was tested for VeraLiprid. It assumed a discontinuous input rate of the drug, noted U on this schema, but an identical absorption rate Ka for the two absorption windows. And the input rate follows a step function, represented here, which defines two successive absorption sites. And I will show how this model can be implemented in MLX1, either with PK macros or with ODEs, and then I will explore the behavior of the model with MNXplore. And finally, I will show the result of a modeling workflow in Monolix, and I will diagnose the model. So first, it is possible to write the structural model with PK macros like this. I'm going to explain each line of this model. So the first three macros define the central compartment with its linear elimination and the peripheral compartment like we had seen earlier in this webinar. So a compartment number 2 is implicitly defined with peripheral. Then a third compartment is defined to represent the gut here. And the constant input rate for this compartment is modeled as 2 zero-order absorptions of the drug with the macro absorption. In each absorption macro, the parameter given as argument T lag is the delay of the absorption. So for the first absorption, it is called T1, and the parameter given as argument TK0 is the duration of the zero-order process. For the first absorption, it is called DT1. And we have already seen that the argument P is for the proportion of the drug used in this process. So again, F1 is the fraction of drug in the first absorption. Then T2 represents the time between the end of the first absorption and the start of the second absorption. This parameterization ensures that there is no time overlap between each absorption site, and DT2 represents the duration of the second absorption. And finally, a transfer macro encodes the identical absorption from each absorption site in the gut compartment, which has the number 3, to the central compartment, which has the number 1. As I have said before, PK macros has the advantage of taking into account analytical solutions when they are available, but here, because of the transfer between the gut and the central compartment, no analytical solution is available. So the model will automatically be transformed into an ODE system by monolith and integrated. And therefore, I need to add the statement ODE type equals SIF to choose an ODE solver which is appropriate for SIF systems like this. Finally, the input and output are defined on the top and bottom of the model like usual. Equivalently, I can write this model with ODEs. In that case, the model counts these 3 ODEs, where AG is the drug amount in the gut, AC is the drug amount in the central compartment, and AP in the peripheral compartment. And a zero-order input is implemented for AG with the rate U. Then the time dependence for the transfer rate, U, can be encoded with if-else statements and the different times. So U1 is the rate in the first absorption window, and U2 the rate in the second absorption window. And these rates are defined with the duration of each window and the fraction of the drug. And AMC dose is a keyword recognized by MLX1 as the drug amount administered. So it can be used, like here, to link the ODEs to the drug administration information. Finally, the ODEs need to be initialized, and the input, output, and the ODE type statements can be added around the model. So you can see that this version of the model is a bit longer than with the macros, because the macros handle the initialization and administration part in an easier way, but they are equivalent. To check that this model correctly captures double peaks, I am now going to explore the behavior of this model with MLExplore, which is the application of the monolith suite for simple simulations and model exploration. So I have copied in the editor of MLExplore the model written with ODEs in a section model. And I have added values for the parameters in the section parameter and a dose at time 0 in the section design. And then in the output, I can decide to output not only the concentration CC, but also the amount in the gut compartment AJ and the transfer rate, the discontinuous transfer rate into the gut U. So since I can display in MLExplore any variable of the model, this can also provide insightful simulations to understand how the model behaves. And finally, I define plotting elements in the section results. And when I click on the button Run, then MLExplore displays the simulation in these plots, for which I have already changed the colors of the curves in the panel style here to differentiate better the curves. On the top, I see the input rate of the drug in the gut, and on the bottom, I see the resulting amount in the gut in red and the plasma concentration in blue with 2 peaks. So MLExplore permits a graphical visualization of each system variable over time, and it also allows me to see the impact of modifying some parameters with the sliders here. I can see, for instance, that by decreasing the fraction of drug absorbed in the first window, I can change the relative height of the peak. All right, so this model seems also able to capture the multiple peaks in VeraLiquid. To see how it performs, I have already applied it in a step-by-step modeling workflow in Monolith to estimate the parameters and set up the statistical model. So I will not detail the workflow like for the first model, but I will show you the final model. In this project here, this model has been applied written with the PK macros. And the random effect on DT2 has been removed after its variability has been identified as close to 0. And also K-pop has been fixed to avoid overparameterization. Then we can have a look at the individual fit. This individual fit shows that the model is able to capture double peaks, but interestingly, it provided quite different individual predictions than the first model of this webinar. As you can see, because the finite absorption sites allow to predict pointed peaks, like here, for example, with higher absorption rates. So this seems better for some individuals, maybe for individual 2 or 6, but not for all. And indeed, the VPC also shows a quite good predictive power, but there remain a few outlier areas on the second absorption peak here and at the end of the elimination. Therefore, we consider that the performance of the model built in the previous section of this case study is higher. Moreover, I can also check the log likelihood and information criteria, and compared to these values, the results for the first project are a bit smaller. So you can compare the VIC, for instance. I still have the other project that is open, and that is almost 10 points lower. So it confirms the better fit. So consequently, I choose the first model to perform now new simulations in Simulix. Let me introduce briefly Simulix. Simulix is the application of the Monolith suite dedicated to advanced simulations. It is implemented as an R package, which provides more flexibility than MLX Pro. The Simulix can simulate a new model, or it can reuse automatically all the elements of a Monolith project for the simulation, like the model, the parameters estimated in the project, as well as the design from the dataset. And it is also possible to redefine manually any of these elements. In this webinar, I will simulate the model based on my Monolith project, and I will only modify the number of individuals and the output. I will output the AUC and the duration spent in a therapeutic window. So the goal is to assess the effect of the drug in different ways in a large population. I have defined these simulations in an R script, so let me show you this script in RStudio, and I will explain it step by step. So the script starts with loading the package MLXR, which contains the function Simulix. Then I store the path to my Monolith project in a variable project file. And before simulating this project, I define with these lines a formula for the AUC to add in the model here. So AUC is defined as the integration of CC. Then I define two outputs for the simulation, the plasma concentration CC at different times, and the AUC only at the last time, 25. I then give these elements as arguments to Simulix with the project path, the line to add in the model to compute the AUC, the two outputs, and with an argument group, the number of individuals. And I choose 500 individuals to simulate a large population. So I run the simulation, and the result will be stored in an object REST1, which is a list of tables. I can visualize now the content of the first table, called CC, with ggplot, for instance. So these few lines will just plot the individual concentration curves over time. So these are the predictions for the 500 simulated individuals. And this uses the population parameters estimated in the Monolix project. Because there are many individuals, I can use the function percentile MLX of the MLXR package to turn this plot into percentiles, like this. So this way I can see more clearly the predictions across the population. Now the AUC values are saved in another table, AUC, in the list rest one. I choose to visualize its content as a histogram of the values. And I see a large variability in the AUC values. Let's investigate the shape of the concentration curve with respect to these AUC values. To do this, I first compute the AUC quartiles with these two lines. And then I add a column in the tables AUC and CC that assigns for each individual its corresponding AUC quartile. And now I can plot the percentiles of the concentration, CC, for each quartile. So percentile MLX will automatically create subplots according to the values of the quartile. This plot shows that the subpopulation corresponding to the fourth quartile shows clear double peaks, with the second peak corresponding to the second peak that is quite high, and the second peak corresponding to the first quartile are smaller. So the double peak phenomenon with a high second peak increases the AUC value. Now I am going to compute a therapeutic window. To this end, I now add several lines in the model that are written here that define a new variable, time above target, which is an integration of the time when each individual concentration is above a target concentration of 200. So at the end of the simulation, this variable, time above target, will contain for each individual the duration spent above the target across the whole simulation. And because I am again only interested in the last value of this variable, I define as an output only a high measurement time in the variable. And then I simulate this variable with Simulix. As before, I can first visualize the result as a histogram, like this, to see the variability in the population. And then I can also use simple post-processing in R to quantify the result. For example, I compute the percentage of individuals here that had a concentration above the target during at least 2 hours. So all the individuals that are above some point here. And this can be done easily with this line here that just counts the number of individuals corresponding to this criterion. In this population, there are 89% of individuals. So I'm going to stop the simulations now, but you could imagine to use these new outputs to compare different new treatments, for example. So that's it for this webinar. To conclude, I have identified double peaks in the PK of VeriLiquid with DATExplore, and I have explored and compared 2 approaches for modeling this PK. In the first approach, I have built a model with 2 delayed first-order absorptions with a step-by-step workflow, alternating an evaluation of the model and an adjustment of 1 element. And because of the small size of the data set, I took care to precisely assess the inter-individual variability to identify non-pairing parameters. And I have also identified over-parameterization with the correlation matrix of the estimate and with convergence assessment. So the final model had 1 fixed parameter, characterizing a slight over-parameterization, and it showed a good predictive power. And in the second approach, I have explored in MLXplore a model with 2 successive absorption windows, which reflects a physiological interpretation. And we have seen that this model, when applied in a modeling workflow in Monolix, provides quite different individual predictions for our data set, with pointed peaks and higher absorption rates, However, the predictive power assessed by the VPC was not as good as in the first case. And finally, I have selected the first model for simulation, and I have used Simulink to obtain easily new useful outputs to assess the effect of the drug in a large population. We can now open the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Pauline. Yeah, so indeed, let's open the Q&A session. So I invite you to type your questions in the Q&A box on the right of the WebEx interface. So we already have a first question about the different type of ODE. So with this ODE type keyword, what are the different options and what are the consequences?
So there are two options, stiff and non-stiff, basically, and by default the ODE solver is non-stiff. So if you want the stiff, an ODE solver for stiff systems, you need to add the statement ODE type. It is recommended to add it in most of the cases because it is very usual to have stiff systems, stiff ODE systems.
Okay, thanks. We have a second question about the convergence assessment. It's quite expensive to run. So is it possible to kind of save it to be able to reopen it afterwards in case we just close it by error?
No, unfortunately, the graphical reports of the convergence assessment cannot be saved. This is a limitation that we will work on.
Yeah, so it's planned for the next release to really save all this information so that it's possible to reload it. The next question is about the bioavailability. So in this model, with this data set and with this model, would it be possible to estimate the total bioavailability, so compared to the IV route, I guess?
That would be really difficult because we have not much data and no IV dose, so that will not be identifiable.
Will these slides and all the projects be shared? So is it possible to download them online?
So we are going to publish a case study based on this PK data set and the modeling workflow. So it might not be shared exactly under this form, but it will be published on our website. And also the webinar is going to be recorded and the video will be shared.
And what about units? So if I remember well, the value for the volume is 0.2. So will it be liters, or I mean, how do I know the units of the volume?
That depends really on the data set. So yeah, it has to be. You have to know it.
Yeah, so it depends on your data set. So if the amount column is in milligrams and your concentration column is in milligram per liter, then the estimated volume will be in liters. I guess in this case, it's not milligram and milligram per liter because indeed a volume of distribution of 0.2 liters would be unrealistic. I have to say I don't remember the units for this example, but when we publish the online case study, this will be clear. Any additional questions? Don't hesitate to type your questions. Maybe I have one question. So in this example, we have used a model with the two parallel absorptions that are delayed with a T-lag. Would it be possible to delay them with a transit compartment instead? And what would it change?
So a transit compartment would be able to delay the absorption with more flexibility as well in the shape of the absorption. However, to add this flexibility, the transit compartments need more parameters. So it would take 3 parameters instead of 2 for the absorption rate and the time, the duration of the delay. And in the case of our model, it actually would bring some improvement, but it would worsen the over-parameterization. So this is the choice that I didn't take.
And if we don't have the T-lag, so we have two parallel absorptions with two different rates, would it be possible to generate two peaks with this kind of models?
We'd have to check in MNXplore probably, but I think it would be hard to differentiate the two peaks.
Okay, thanks. And I guess in this data set we had no covariance, but if we would have some, would it be possible to do kind of a covariate search to add covariates in this model?
Yes, absolutely. So unfortunately there is no covariate in this data set. But if we had, it would be possible to look at the correlation plot between the parameters and the covariate to identify some relationship, some correlation, and also we have the results of statistical tests to identify significant correlations. So it would be easy to add some covariate. But then it would also add some more parameters in the model. So in the context of over-parameterization, it might be an issue.
Okay. And from your experience with this kind of a bit complicated double peak models, is it easier to work with clearances or with elimination rates?
I would say there is no general rule for this. It should be quite equivalent. Then it depends really on the model and the data set.
Okay, I see no further questions, and we are now presenting for 1 hour, so I guess it's time to close. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. We're going to put the video online next week, and more detailed case study in text format in a couple of weeks or maybe months. Thank you very much and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.